Yeah, it is, buddy. Now say it like you mean it.
It's New Color Day!
Come on! What day is it?
It's New Color Day!
Yeah, it is. And what color do we have today?
Well, bud, I'll tell you what color we got. We got W&N French Ultramarine, one of my favorite colors. And you know what? I've already got it on my palette here, so there's no need to squeeze this out, although we always enjoy squeezing a little bit of paint out of the tube. But not today, because I use this color all the time. Still, it's New Color Day, because I just got it. Anyway, guys, let's take a look at how French Ultramarine, one of the most popular colors in all of art. Believe it or not, this color was worth its weight in gold, quite literally, back in the Renaissance era. And now, today, for a very small price, each art student that goes into art school can pick it up and carry it in their toolbox all day long and paint with it as much as they want, because it costs, well, maybe not next to nothing, but it's pretty cheap. Let's see how this color fares, and if maybe you like it, want to add it if you don't have it already. Oh, ultramarine, baby. Most royal blues, a blue fit for a king, quite literally, because kings used to pay to have you in their paintings. I'm just getting this square wet right here so we can insert a little bit of that ultramarine blue. We want to get that mass tone in that tint. Bam! Oh, look at that. Oh, but we're not done yet. This is just going to be a very light tint because it's so wet and there's so little paint on the brush. But we gotta have more. I want more. Yes. Let's make a little gradation, shall we? Yes, let's see what the mass tone looks like. We know what the tint looks like. It comes out to a very kind of dull sky blue, baby blue sort of color. The sort of color you expect to see in cribs and blankets and stuff. It feels very comforting like that, doesn't it? Ooh, yes, it's a very, very serene color, I guess you could say. But I want to get the most out of this. I want to really, really lump in that color intensity. Let's not get the brush wetter because we don't want this to bloom. No, I don't want to bloom. Because, if you re-wet the brush while you're brushing in paint, you'll get a bloom. And I don't want a flower. I just want to see what the tint looks like. And so far, so good. I want to see what the mass tone looks like too, but the tint, that would be very good too. I think I've got as much tint or mass tone out of this as I'm going to get. As you can see, W&N Ultramarine or French Ultramarine has a little bit of granulation to it. It has, well, all ultramarine tends to have that granulating effect. A flocculating effect, which doesn't necessarily indicate that the pigment is heavy, but with ultramarine, what happens is the pigment clumps together and nestles into little notches in the paper, and it creates that granular effect that we all know and love. It's one of my most beloved colors for that effect. Now we have to decide what the mixing complement of ultramarine is, but it's not going to be all that hard, because if you've ever looked at a color wheel, what do you think it is? Remember back to that color wheel that you learned about while you were taking art classes in school. Maybe you were in elementary school, maybe you were in high school, maybe you were in college, but think back to that color wheel. And what was the color? That was opposite blue, because guess what? That color wheel they showed you during all those classes, that one with the red, blue, and yellow primary colors, that is a mixing complement color wheel. It tells you immediately which colors will form a neutral when you mix them together. Now, I'll give you 3 seconds to guess. 1 1000, 2 1000, 3 1000, and guess what? It's orange. That's right, if you said orange, pat yourself on the back. But, we're not going to use an orange right now. No. We've got a dull earth color, don't we? We've got burnt sienna. Because guess what? The most famous mixing complement of all, one of the most famous mixing complement pairs in all of art and creation, is Persienna and Ultramarine. Because look at them. Oh, they create stone gray when they get mixed together. They're not perfect mixing complements, but they're so close that it doesn't matter. You're just splitting hairs if you want to criticize whether or not these are actual mixing complements. Look at that. Look at the beautiful granulating effect. My God. Oh, every painter ever has used this. Name him. Like Turner used it. And, you know, a bunch of other watercolors use it. God, the names of them are escaping me right now. You can tell how long it's been since I've looked up names and stuff. But trust me, a lot of people have used this. And if you find an artist out there, they've used it. Name one. Seriously. Now we gotta go ahead and be a little braver. Because we're going into uncharted territory here, baby. We have to decide what the visual complement of Ultramarine is. And you know what? Visual complements aren't really something you hear about all that often, but they exist. And can you guess what the visual complement of Ultramarine is? Well, you can probably guess right now based on the color that I'm setting here. Why, it's yellow! Well, specifically an orange yellow, but this is orange enough to really cut the mustard. You see, Ultramarine Blue is a very violet blue, so it looks good with very orangish yellows. Not too orange. The more orange it is, the more it kind of matches up with Prussian blue or phthalo blue instead. But, this is very good. Because this middle blue color that we have here will just sparkle like a jewel when it's set next to Ultramarine. And check this out. Look at that. It's already shimmering. And believe me, painting with Ultramarine is already like painting with liquid jewels. But now, oh, that effect. Oh, it is the best feeling in the world. Does it get any better than this? Probably. But I don't know where. And if you know, dare I say, go ahead and name your pleasure. But mine is Ultramarine, set next to middle yellow. Yeah. Oh, baby. That's the good stuff right there. Check that out. Oh, man. Oh, no. A little bit of that spilling down, but you get the idea. At least that stuff up there is going to stay. This is what I get for putting wet colors right next to each other. You just want to act like watercolors, don't you? I should have used oil paints. Now let's go ahead and do a little bit of a comparison with magenta, yellow, and cyan and see how each of the Win and Newts colors compares to other Win and Newts colors. Win and Newts for the win down here in magenta. We're going with Win and Newts. Permanent Rose. And that Permanent Rose is exactly as you would expect it to be. It's really nothing to write home about here. It's Permanent Rose. What do you want from it? It does its thing. It's good to go. It doesn't have to put on any airs or anything like that. It's just Permanent Rose. Let's go ahead and do this. Now, Ultramarine, when you mix it with Permanent Rose, gets you a very, very delightful violet. So check this out. Check that out. Ooh, well, that's just Ultramarine right there. But wait till it connects with the Permanent Rose. And the Permanent Rose, when it connects with the Ultramarine, kind of creates this separating soft violet that's very, very reminiscent of a violet you might get with a genuine rose madder. That's also made by, well, Win and Newts! Best rose madder out there, made by Win and Newts, baby. I'm just gonna put a little bit more Ultramarine in there to really liven things up. And ooh. Oh, I love that violet so much. So bright, yet so understated at the same time. Now, for my yellow, baby, I'm gonna pull out that cadmium yellow pale and see how that looks with our delightful French ultramarine. How does French ultramarine, I gotta be sure to add the French. S'il vous plaît. Oui, ultramarine. Oui, monsieur ultramarine. hop into the ring now and let's see how you play with this yellow, because I am so curious right now how you do with the cadmium yellow. I'm not sure I've ever mixed you with this before. And now you see that it makes a very dull green. Very dull, actually. If you're using, like, oil paints, it makes a much brighter green than this, but considering that we are painting with watercolors, this is a fairly dull green. That's the thing about watercolors. You can't paint exactly the same way that you can with oils. You gotta use a little bit more discretion, like, well, if I want that brighter color in watercolor, I gotta use that brighter color. I can't use the same colors that I do in oil painting, or else it's not gonna be as bright and lively. See, here you have a pretty dull green because violet blue mixed with its visual complement is not going to result in a very dark color at all. In fact, it's a pretty dull green, and that might be useful. But we're going to see how Ultramarine works with my personal favorite cyan color, Prussian Blue, a very dull greenish blue or cyan color. But I still love this color so much. Prussian Blue. The day I started using this color was a day that I never really looked back. I thought to myself, ye gads, what have I gotten myself into with this color? This color looks not what I expected at all. But I grew to love Prussian Blue. And Prussian Blue and I have been inseparable for years. We've become such good friends. I can barely speak right when I think of it. That's how emotional the relationship is. Oh. Ultramarine, don't fail me now. Show me how you play with Prussian Blue. Show me what you got. Look at that. That is beautiful. Let's get a little bit more. Oh no, I rinsed off my brush, but oh well, we're gonna have a bloom in here. Don't care. Let's just throw a little bit more Prussian Blue in there and see how it goes. Ooh, ooh. You know, I love how it gets more greenish the darker it seems to get, whereas when you tint it out, it seems to just kind of fade into a middle blue type color. Look at that. When you mix the Ultramarine and the Prussian Blue together, it doesn't really make a really noticeable blue. It makes a color that's, well, kind of right in the middle. It looks kind of like a cobalt blue, doesn't it? Yeah, it looks a little bit like a cobalt blue, but not completely, because obviously Prussian Blue is not bright enough to make that happen. Yet still, the effect is the same. It's interesting to look at all these colors. The mixing complement that I used over here for the Ultramarine was Core! Burnt Sienna Natural. And this over here was Mission Gold Permanent Yellow Light, or benzimidazole yellow, whatever you want to call it.
Hey, Bubblehorn, why is it called Ultramarine?
I don't know. It's just a name.
Well, is it a really awesome soldier?
No, it doesn't have anything to do with that. I'm pretty sure about that one.
Does it come from the deep blue sea?
I don't think so. I think it comes from a cave.
Well, then this doesn't make any sense to me. Huh!
Why don't we just start painting?
Teddy painting! Teddy painting!
Using Ultramarine is one of those things that you really do when you want some granulation in your painting. And you don't always want granulation in your painting. Sometimes you want a flatter texture, and when you want a flatter texture, you need to use a color like Prussian Blue or Phthalo Blue. But Ultramarine is still one of the more useful colors in watercolor painting. Here I'm painting some lily pads. I did a little illustration that is very loose and very linear. I was kind of inspired to do this type of drawing by the drawings I've seen of Paul Signac and Vincent van Gogh. And I really like both of their drawings through the years. I'm starting off with the lightest color, of course, because when you start off with the lightest color in watercolor, it's the best way to do it, because you don't want to start out with your darkest colors. And believe me, ultramarine or blue is one of the darkest colors you can really start out with. Blue in general is a really dark color. You don't want to start out with that. You want to start out with the very lightest tints and stuff. So I started with Aurelin here, and then I started in with other colors and stuff, like a yellow orange. I use a cadmium yellow deep here to get some of the orangier colors, and I start putting in the reds, because red is kind of a mid-tone color. It's got a middle value. It's not quite really dark, but it's also not quite really light either. It's pretty much smack in the middle, which is why I started doing it and laying in that rose madder and stuff. And you can see me kind of just throwing some other colors in here before I get in with all the ultramarine stuff. Ultramarine, I guess since it is a pretty dark value color, every color has a value. I know I bring it up a lot, but every color has an inherent value to it, just in mass tone. Yellow is the lightest value, and blue is among the darkest, whereas red and a bunch of the other colors are pretty near the middle, depending on which color we're talking about, of course. I usually don't like using ultramarine for water and stuff unless I really feel like it needs that color because of the texture of ultramarine, but I feel like it really added this lovely hue to the water while I was painting it, and also it looked really nice against the yellowish green lily pads that I was painting. These lily pads are so exaggerated and kind of abstract. It almost doesn't look like they're lily pads, but I do really enjoy the way that they pop so much against these yellows that we've painted on them after we put in the ultramarine in the water. Sometimes you really need that color to help you see which part of the drawing is which part, because sometimes you do a line drawing like this and different aspects of it get lost in all the lines. Like, you lose a sense of which part is the water and which part is the lily pad. And it helps to have that color in there to let you know, hey, this is what's going on. I really like using the ultramarine with the rose madder or the permanent rose for these violets that are real intense but not super intense. I like using permanent rose and not a color like quinacridone magenta, because it provides me with a really, really bright magenta color. And quinacridone magenta is pretty bright in itself, but you know, I like that brighter color I get from permanent rose. But also I like the way that rose madder works with ultramarine. When you mix the two of them together, they don't really separate quite so much as ultramarine and permanent rose does, because when you mix those together to make a violet, I notice a little bit of separation whenever I paint with them. And that kind of surprises me. That really does. Everyone likes to use ultramarine to mix their violets, and I understand that. And if they don't mix their violets, they probably use dioxazine violet. I use that color sometimes. I use it sometimes, but I kind of prefer the texture in my violets. So I like using the ultramarine and the rose madder to do that. The rose madder genuine, it blends together more seamlessly, and you can kind of get that vibe here as I'm glazing it. I think the end result of this painting here really showcases what ultramarine is capable of when you use it alongside other colors. It's a joy to use. Well, soulmates, that about sums up W&N French Ultramarine. It's a slightly staining, semi-transparent, granulating violet blue, and the most useful violet blue of all. It's actually probably the most useful blue, and it's really cheap, so there's no reason for you not to have this color. You gotta go get it if you don't have it already. I mean, everybody uses this. Everybody. Name an artist. I mean, it's easier to name artists who don't use it than artists who use it, because literally everybody uses this. So W&N is actually makes one of the best ones here. I really love this one. It's super intense. It's really easy to use. It's got a lot of texture to it. I love using it, and it just handles so perfectly. It re-wets easily. I have no complaints about this color. Essential. You gotta get it right now. So, you know, get out of here. Go get it. I mean, go get it right now. Now. Yeah, there's the door. The door's over there.
What are you doing? Don't tell them to leave, Butthorn.
What? I'm just telling them they gotta get this color. I mean, it's really useful. It's French Ultramarine.
You know, you still haven't said why it's called Ultramarine.
Are you really still thinking about why it's called Ultramarine? It doesn't matter.
It is made by a really good soldier, isn't it?
Yes, it's because it's the most powerful Marine. There was a guy way back in the day who was in the army, and he did all this wild stuff, and then and he wore blue while he did it, and it just happened to be this particular shade of blue. So they named the color after him. Oh, and he happened to be French. That's it.
Oh, well, you could have just said so. You don't have to be such a butthorn about it.
Of course. Well, until next time, welcome me to you. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.